Welcome to Living from the Heart. I am your host, Tina Thrussell, co-founder of Best You Can Be and messenger of the Shin, the Way of the Heart. The way of the heart is living with love, kindness, and compassion for yourself first, and then for everyone around you. For when you can love yourself, be kind and compassionate with yourself, you then give from that overflow, from that true space of giving from the heart rather than from any sense of obligation or need. So today I am very delighted to have Claude Pellerin on the show. I first met Claude, I think about 4 years ago, and we now both sit on the board of directors of Unity of Calgary. And in watching Claude as a speaker on stage at Unity and interacting with him one-on-one, watching him as our president of the board, I've seen that this is a man who truly does understand what it means to live from his heart. And I know from the stories he's told that he has been living from his heart for as long as he can remember. And it is my absolute and delight and pleasure to bring him on the show today. And just before I do that, I would like to invite you to receive a complimentary issue of Heart and Mind Matters. Every other Tuesday morning, we send out an inspirational article, a quote of the week, a YouTube video, and it's intended as an uplift to bring some brightness and positivity into your week. So you can receive that subscription at bestyoucanbe.ca. That's BEST, the letter U, CAN, the letter B.ca. So without further ado, I would like to bring on to the show Claude Pellerin.
Good morning.
Good morning, Claude. It is a delight. We made an attempt to have this happen once before, but here we are at long last. And I believe, as I know you do, that everything happens in divine timing.
Absolutely, it does. There's no doubt.
Absolutely, no doubt. And I know that divine timing has played a huge role in your life, and you've been very good at listening to that voice of inner guidance, the voice of what I call a source of all, God, whatever name we give it. And so I'd like you to share with us your earliest memory. How's that for taxing your memory of when you were aware of this inner voice, of this inner guidance, aware that there is something greater than you that guides you in your life?
Oh my goodness. It's been with me all my life. I think the first awakening I had of that was I was 12 years old. And at 12 years old, I was going through a poor me syndrome. I had no friends and I had not the best family uh, context, if you like. And I was really down and crying, and I was sitting in the park along the Rideau River and asking questions, why am I here? Why can't I have any friends? And blah blah blah. And I was crying, and it was hot. It was a hot day in June. My eyes were burning, and then all of a sudden a cool breeze came by. Oh my God, it felt so good. And then all of a sudden my attention came. I could hear the birds singing. I could smell the lilacs. I could hear the water flow in the Rideau River. And a thought came to mind. And the thought was, I know what I have to do. All I have to do is understand all that I can about life. 12 years old. So this was divine guidance. No doubt. I got up. My poor me syndrome was gone. It never came back. And I was on a mission. I'm still on that mission today. So
Wow.
oh yeah, it's a big wow, and that has been my guidance, for my way of life. I got married, got 3 children, My first wife passed away, got married again, and so it's been for me a good life. And life took me into the construction industry, and it seemed to be a natural place for me. It's a place where I functioned naturally without effort, no effort at all. And it's as if, well, I believe in reincarnation. I know that I've spent several other lives in the construction industry because the first time I opened a set of drawings, I knew what I was looking at. I understood what I was looking at.
Wow.
And yeah, so that really made it easy. But I discovered very early on that my true talent and destiny was to manage people, manage men. Guys came to me with their questions instead of going to the foreman. And simple questions, we're working together, we're digging a hole. Questions like, where do I put this dirt with it that I'm digging? And these kind of things. And I found myself, people saw what I was doing, and the superintendent of that project, who was the best mentor I ever had in my entire life, Sam Oxtonaitis, tall Lithuanian man. He saw that guys came to me, so he put me in charge. I was 18 years old.
Oh, wow. 18.
Yeah, put me in charge of a small group of guys, you know. And the next thing I knew, I was in charge of a night shift. We were building a bridge across the Trent Canal and building cofferdams. Cofferdams are boxes that you build in the water that you can pump the water out of them, and then go down and build the foundations for bridge piers. I loved it, loved it. And then at age 21, I found, as a result of that project, Sam uh, referred me to the upper management of that company to look after a project on Highway 17. I had to demolish an old bridge and build a new one in its place. And I had to do it with local laborers who were lumberjacks. They knew nothing about construction. And when they first came, and I found out they knew nothing about construction, I said, if you have a willingness to learn, I have a willingness to teach. And so it was. I taught these guys how to build formwork, how to tie rebar, how to put up false work, how to place concrete. It was a wonderful, wonderful adventure. The project got done on time, on budget, and I knew then that this was to be my life. I was to manage men and teach everything that I know, and I was very good at it. And over 50 years of supervising projects, I can count on one hand the amount of men that I fired
Wow.
because it was an absolute necessity. They just didn't fit. Otherwise, I always found a way to um, to help men be their best in the construction world and what they had to do. And I realized that I was like a father for some. I was like a psychiatrist to others. I was uh, somewhat of a friend for others. And in that way, I was connecting with men in a very, very, I have to say, a divine way. A divine way. And the divinity of it didn't come to mind for me until I became a member of Unity.
So
That, go
that was
ahead.
it. I just want to, before you go any further, I want to bring up that I see two really strong points here. And one is your natural leadership ability. Obviously, I mean, at the age of 18, being put in charge of a group of men in a project indicates that you had just a natural leadership skill.
That's right.
And the ease and grace with which everything happened is an indication that you were in the flow of life and that you were following your called path. And
Absolutely.
and that's a sign for people to look for is if something is really, really difficult, then maybe you want to reconsider whether or not you're on the right path.
Yes, that's true. And I mean, you have to trust. Like at the age 21, when I did that first project with the lumberjacks building a bridge, um, I when I look back on that, I know that I had the confidence to do it. I call it unfailing self confidence. Like that's a strong, big term. Unfailing self confidence, and that's exactly what it felt like. But as I grew older and took on some very challenging projects, I did meet with at different times with doubt about that confidence, and but it never lasted very long because I was a solution oriented type of guy. And boy, oh boy, when I took a project, it was my project, taking ownership of it, and it had to go. And all of it was divine guidance. I know it today. And like I said earlier, it's when I joined, became an active member of Unity, that's when I really discovered the divinity in all that took place in my life, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Because there was all of it at different times. And
Mhm.
we all go through that. And that's the nature of life, which is wonderful. Because unless we experience some darkness, we cannot know about the light. It's a very well set up universe, world into which we can evolve. There's
Yes.
no better place for the soul. I believe that I'm a soul. We're all souls in a body, and the soul is the part of us that evolves, that learns. It's the part of us that has the mind, and the mind tells the body what to do. It's very simple. I've been studying the work of David R. Hawkins. He was for me, David R. Hawkins is an equal to Jesus Christ, what Jesus Christ was in his days. In today's modern times, Hawkins has the eloquence and he had the ability to express everything that he knew, like everything that he did was divine guidance. And he talks a lot about that divine guidance, the discovery of God within. And the major part of his work was in consciousness, understanding human consciousness. And really, today, this is where my main focus is. I'm writing a book right now which I titled The Mind Doctor.
The
It's a,
mind
the Mind Doctor.
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 The mind doctor.
The
Okay.
Mind Doctor. It's a fun book. It's a story. It's a fictitious story of a fellow called Tom and his wife Linda, and they go through all the turmoils of life, and they have difficulty finding a way to understand life and discover divinity because they have no idea of such a thing. So their friend said to them, "Well, you got to see the mind doctor. He helped us out." And that's the idea of the story. And of course, in the book, the mind doctor uses many different props, like an hourglass, which I've used at Unity in some of my talks, and a few workshops I've done with the infinity sign to describe the flow of consciousness and these type of things. And that's what the book is about. And now that I'm retired from construction, I'm constructing a book. I'm constructing a story. Construction will always be a big part of me. In the last 3 years of my career in construction, I put together a school where we pulled people off the street to work on construction and make them safety ready in 5 days. It was a
Wow.
very successful program, It went on for 3 years, and it was with PCL Construction Management. And it was a time in 2006 where they had $1.5 billion worth of work on the table in Calgary, the same in Vancouver, and the same in Edmonton. They looked at each other and they said, how are we going to get all this work done? They dispatched people throughout the world, and I mean throughout the world, seeking to find seasoned foremen, seasoned tradespeople, and they brought them into Canada, and they did all the legwork for that to happen. And that was a costly, costly thing.
Yeah.
And at that time, I would just finished a project, which was the renovations of Market Mall. And I said, well, you know what, guys? I can put a training together and pull people off the street and make them safety ready in 5 days. And the operations manager, well, we had become good friends. He kind of trusted. He had a lot of skepticism about the whole idea. He said, oh, well, what the hell do we have to lose? Let's give this guy a shot and see. And they gave me a 60-foot trailer, 8 computers, to do the CSDS safety program that the government imposes on all industries. Their workers must take that program in order to be able to work. And so I had the computers to do that. They gave me a spot in their yard and all the materials I wanted to build mock-ups of homework that we use, and one rookie, a guy who knew nothing about construction. So him and I, we built the mock-ups, we put the program together. I trained my own trainers. There was 2 Hispanic person, 1 German person. They were translators for me.
Oh,
And I was a French translator. And everybody that the company hired, their carpenters, their laborers, they all came through this program. Every district in Canada and in the States that were a PCL branch came to this program to see what the hell is this guy doing? What is this Frenchman doing, you know?
that's really impressive. How does it feel knowing that you impacted the industry in that way? I mean, that's a lot of people that you trained who are now working more safely. In some cases, people who didn't know anything about construction who now have a
Absolutely.
trade.
Yeah,
Like,
there was over 3,500 people came through this program.
wow,
Yeah, but
that's gotta feel
it,
good.
it does. And then 3 years later, when all the chaos of construction had settled, and the company said, "Well, Claude, you're going to have to close down the school. We don't need it anymore because we got everything under control." And I said, "Okay, that's all there is to it." So I shut down the school, and then I said, "I want to stay on the training front because that's where my heart is. That's what I really, really, really love doing." And he said, "No, we don't want you to be on the training front."
Oh,
I said, "Oh." I said, "Why is that?" "Well, we don't need trainers right now. We don't have the money in the budget to add trainers to our." But I kind of felt this was BS, you know. And I challenged them and I said, "Really? So what do you want me to do?" They said, "We want you to run a project downtown Calgary." I said, "No, I am not. I'm done with running projects. I'm going to stay on the training front." "But we told you, Claude, we don't want you in the training front." I said, "Why?" They said, "You empower people." I said, "Okay, we don't want you to empower people."
oh
My jaw dropped. And I said, "Really?" "Yeah, we want to be able to give these guys a 2 hour notice that they're done. That's how the industry works. So
no.
why should we pay you to empower them?
Oh
They're
my.
going to go to another company, and the other company is going to take advantage of all that you're teaching these guys. That's not what we want you to do." I said, "Okay, I'm going to retire." I was at retiring age, and I retired. I said, "I'm going to do this on my own." But doing this on my own was a lot more of a challenge than I thought it would be. It just didn't work out. It just didn't happen. I couldn't make it happen. But divinity kind of channeled me in a different direction. At that time, I created what I call a little company, construction progressive learning seminars and workshops. And I did some consulting work with that for smaller companies. And I also did some workshops and things like this, but it never became a very lucrative money making business. So then people are telling me, Claude, you got to write a book. I mean, you got to get yourself on that front. If you're an author and a speaker, then opportunities will show up in a better way. So that's when I decided to write the book in 2011. I started writing the book, The Mind Doctor. But I got to the place in the book where the mind doctor said to Tom, well, now, Tom, we're going to put a puzzle together. It's going to be the puzzle of your mind. And Tom said, I hate puzzles. I don't want to do puzzles. But the mind doctor says, we have to do the puzzle for you to understand how it works. So the book stopped in 2011 because I had to create the puzzle. So it was it was a challenge to create a puzzle that describes how the mind works and that leads people to easily understand how the mind works. And I created the puzzle. The puzzle became a flower. If I may show you, I'll show it to you.
Sure. So while you're digging out the flower, I will come back to this point that everything that you've done has all been about doing what aligns with your heart. Everything you've done has been about being in alignment with your heart.
There it is.
There it is.
So there's 28 pieces, 28 pieces to this puzzle, and each petal of the flower represents an aspect of who we are, represents the part of us that we don't see, the part of us that is divine, the part of us that learns, the part of us that thinks, and how it all meshes together. And so I built a big mock-up of this flower, a 30-inch mock-up, and 3 years ago I did a presentation for children or young teenagers at the Airdrie High School. And the first presentation was for kids from the age of 14 to the age of 18, and it was very successful. I only had 3/4 of an hour to present this 28-piece puzzle, but there was 22 kids in the class and 28 pieces. So I gave each student a piece, and they were all eager to get their piece put on a big wheel that I had on a tripod. And the only time I had was to plant the seed that this petal represents your ability to think. This petal represents the ability to learn, and on and on and on and on and on. And I did the same presentation for kids, 9 to 13 years old, a week later. Well, that was so much fun. There were 20 kids in the class. You know how children are. They're all over the place. I mean, they got lots of energy, and as we were putting the puzzle together, they were just waiting for their turn to come and put the piece of the puzzle on the big wheel. And in their excitement, they broke the puzzle. It was made of styrofoam and whatnot. So I ended up having kids hold their own piece there, 5 kids holding their pieces onto the wheel. We had a ball. We had a ball. And then I never got time to do all the petals. We got to the yellow petals. I said the yellow petals represent ideas. Everything in this room, everything in this life begins with an idea. Does anybody here have a new idea? And this little guy, 9 years old, puts up his hand. I have a new idea. Oh, I said, what's your name? He says, my name is Paul. I said, okay, Paul, what's your new idea? He says, my new idea is I want to be a cat. I want to be a cat. And all the kids started to laugh. And little Paul was happy that he made the whole class laugh. But then I could see his face change, and he was probably thinking, "Oh, are they laughing because I'm funny, or because uh,
Mhm.
I'm weird, or whatever was going through his mind? I'm not too sure." But his face changed to more of a negative look. I said, "Paul," I said, "you know what? This is a good idea. I have a cat. His name is Baxter, and Baxter waits for me when I come back from work. He's at the door, and as soon as I walk into the door, he wants to play. And I chase him down the back stairs and up the front stairs, and he loves it. And we do this until he's had enough, and then he just curls down in a little ball. He wants to take a break, and then I can pet him, and he purrs away, and it's beautiful." So what that told me is that little Paul probably has a natural aptitude to take care of animals, natural love for animals. And it was my hope then that his parents would pick up on that, you know, and channel him in that direction. And we all have aptitudes. They all show up at one time or another in our life. I know
Mhm.
that for me, I had no idea that I would be a construction guy. Leaving home at age 13, I drove truck. I was a furniture mover. Then I worked for a beef company delivering beef. And I enjoyed every minute of it until one day my cousin said, "Hey, there's an opportunity to be a surveyor's helper for this consulting firm." And I went and I got hired, and that's how it began. That's how it began. The natural aptitude just, whoa, came to the surface. I was just, oh my God, I devoured the learning I had to do. In school, math was my worst subject. I failed it every time. But now I had to know trigonometry. I had
Mhm.
to use a slide rule. I had to do calculations. I learned my trig in 2 months with the help of a good friend
Wow.
who tutored me.
So proof that anything's possible if you want it badly enough, right?
It just happens, you see. So we have to pay attention to our aptitudes. And that's what I did with the guys in construction when I saw that they were in a low place, in a bad place. And I would say, um, what do you love doing the most? That's where your mind needs to go. You need to channel your thoughts in that direction. And lo and behold, the stuff that they discovered about themselves just through a very simple conversation like that, they discovered their aptitude. Ah, now this is a place where you got to go more often. This is a place you need to explore, and that's what life is all about, really. And my aptitudes have found uh, new new ways of being through unity. It was early in the beginning when I had asked Susan Cullen, who was leader of president of the board at the time, and I think leader of part of a leadership team. I said, "I'd like to have a discovery meeting with you so you get to know me a little bit, and I'd like to do some talks at Unity." So we went for a coffee, and she listened to my story, just like you're listening to my story now. It was very similar. This is a discovery meeting. You discover me, people discover me, I discover you. And she said, "How would you feel about helping us with the conference? We were hosting the Unity Conference, Canada Unity Conference in Calgary that year." And I said, "Sure, I'll give you a hand with that." And
So
so
another way of constructing. I'm looking at the time, Claude. It's 9:29. I can't believe.
I could talk forever. My apologies. I just kind of.
There's such interesting stories, and all of them point to the fundamentals of what this show is about. That when you find your aptitude, it's what you become passionate about because it's natural to you. It comes easy. It's in flow. It's in alignment with the divine. When we live purposely and passionately, life is joyful and it feels fulfilling. And if you were to want to deliver one final message for our watchers, our listeners, because this will eventually be a podcast, what would be one big message you want them to take away from you, Claude?
Well, to take a look at yourself in the mirror, look into your eyes and say, what are my aptitudes? I have them. I will nourish them. I will develop them. And life will just come up, and believe in divine guidance. Everything is divine guidance. You don't even have to put an effort into it. Once you put your thought, what you have in mind will manifest. So hold in mind the things that you love doing, and I can assure you they will manifest for you. And life just becomes a never ending, wonderful experience to live through, and you never want to die. You just want to keep on living. And that's how I feel.
Oh, that's
Thank you. Thank
beautiful.
you for having me on your show. It was a it was a wonderful experience to even watch myself talking and expressing the most important things that I have in mind at this time in my life.
It's interesting, isn't it? When you have an opportunity to just sit and talk, it reaffirms what's most important
It
to
does.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you again.
Thank you so much for being on the show today,
It's been
Claude.
my pleasure as much as yours.
It was fun. I learned a few new stories that I hadn't heard before. So really
Uh,
interesting, really
Tons of
interesting life.
stories. Tons of stories.
Thank you so much. And so we'll say ciao for now. Tune in next week at the same time, Wednesday at 9 a.m. Mountain for our next guest. Until then, create a beautiful week.
Shall do. Bye bye.